Yes, ma'am. We are audible.
Okay. And with your permission, we shall start.
Yes, please, Dr. Philomath. Yes, please,
Okay.
go ahead.
Hello. On behalf of Department of AI, Anurag University, I, Philomena Goswami, extend a very sincere warm welcome to our eminent speaker, Ms. Anita Sarkar, Director, Conversational AI Technology, LI, North Carolina, USA. I welcome my fellow faculty members, beloved HOD Registrar Ma'am Professor Samin Fatima, beloved students, and all the participants present here on the third and concluding webinar of the AI Industry Readiness Air 2021 webinar series. The sole purpose of initiating the AIR monthly webinar series is to connect dots from classroom to the industry. It provides the best platform for showcasing the best practices, latest technological advancements, and their implementation and impact on the industry. Through this initiative, students get to know the real time experiences, learn to apply theoretical knowledge, and understand the work culture of industries. Industry institute interactions go beyond academics, and it is excellent exposure for students to attain practical perspective of the world of work. Students get an opportunity to learn practically, get to know working methods, interactions, and employment practices. Furthermore, students are also able to learn about the work environment of companies and feel more confident when it is time for them to appear for campus interviews. I now invite Professor Samin Fatima ma'am for presenting the opening remarks of today's session. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Tilotama. First of all, let me congratulate you that you have successfully conducted this AIR series. And I think this
Thank
is the last talk in this series. And I attended those series, and I'm really happy that you got getting together very good speakers on this show. I think our students also must have picked up a lot of new technologies, learned a little bit about those, maybe not in depth, but at least they got a idea that these technologies do exist, and maybe they are searching the web and YouTube for more information on these technologies, I'm sure. Today, again, there's a very nice topic, which is like conversational AI, and a topic under NLP. My students are just in the second and third year. They have learned a little bit of AI. So I think initially I would just like to tell them a little bit about what this particular branch of AI is. In AI, we have a lot of things being discussed. You must have heard about machine learning earlier, and now today it's natural language processing. So natural language processing is a very, very important area in AI. And I think there's nobody who does not know about Alexa, who does not know about chatbots. I think all of you know that, right? You've been using these probably. But then the technology that lies behind these devices or these chatbots, okay, is all AI. And this AI, this particular area of AI, deals with natural language processing. So when you want to learn natural language processing, you have to know a particular language, of course. And a language could be English or Hindi or Telugu or Urdu or Bengali. It could be any of the languages. And to understand something in a particular language, you need to know two things. You need to understand the grammar or the syntax, and you've got to understand the meaning or the semantics. So there are two aspects to understanding natural language, and one is your syntax, the other is semantics. Of course, there are some more that are included, but majorly these are the two things: syntax and semantics. Now, if the syntax is correct, yet the semantics may not be correct. So you have to have both hand in hand, syntax and semantics. Now, when you're talking natural language, it's very easy for us to understand if we know a particular language. But how do we make the computers understand this? So we know that in English you have these different parts of speech. You know what's a noun, what's a verb, right? But how do we make the computer understand what's a noun and what's a verb? We know what are objects, we know what are entities, we know what we're talking about when we're talking. But how does the computer understand that? How does that understand that this is an entity I'm talking about? And that's the hard part. You have to get this information right. Once you get this right, then you can understand or make sense, right? So this is what NLP deals with. Now, natural language processing, this deals with both written and spoken language. So we have two aspects. We write English and we also speak English, right? So you have written pieces of text. You also have audios, and the machine has to understand both of these inputs, right? The audio input as well as the textual input, and then process it, understand it. So you see how the problem is growing in scale. We started off with language, then we said syntax and semantics, and now we're going on and we're saying that okay, there's something more to it. Okay? Now, when you're doing this, you see that you also have a sequence of things that are being talked about a particular object. And how do you connect up the sequence of sentences? Okay, uh, when you go in time forward, okay, supposing I'm talking about some particular object, I start talking about the object. In the first sentence, I do mention the object, but in the second sentence, I don't give the name of the object, but I refer to the object. So how do I do that? How do I understand that? Okay. There's one sentence, I'll read this to you. Okay. There's a sentence which I have come across. A mother beats up her daughter because she was drunk. Now, who was drunk? A mother beats up her daughter because she was drunk. Who is drunk? The mother, the daughter? Anybody? Karthik has something to say.
I was trying to select mother.
See, you say
Sometimes
mother.
it goes longer, right?
But somebody could even argue it could be the daughter, right? So there is the context is there. The context is there, and you have to probably build up the whole discourse the conversational discourse that's going on between people. You have to get the context right. So it's not just enough to understand the syntax, the semantics, but the context also plays a major role. Okay. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this problem is a large problem which needs to be handled, and we have our speaker here, Anita, who in 1 hour is going to tell us all about conversational AI. And thank you very much, ma'am, for being here with us. And we're going to enjoy your session. Sit back and listen to you. Thank you, ma'am. God bless you.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Fatima, and thank you, Dr. Goswami, for inviting me here. It is really commendable what you are arranging for your students, this kind of industry and academic, kind of a handshake, if you may. And Dr. Fatima, that was beautiful introduction to the topic. What you said about the context, can't say that enough about it. We live that day in and then day out about machines understanding context and getting it right or wrong. So today, I will not be going into the details of any particular NLP models or such. I will present more of a,
I think
you all are the experts in.
once again, I am sorry to disturb you. Actually, we have some other flow also. So once again, after the opening remarks, I would like to call upon Vinita to introduce today's eminent speaker also. So
Okay,
after
sorry,
that, we will
take it away.
start
Yeah.
with you. No, you don't have to be sorry. I am sorry for
No, you're
that.
good.
Okay, Vinita, please.
Uh,
Over to you.
yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. I feel privileged to introduce you all to our eminent guest of today's webinar, Ms. Anita Sarkar. Anita Sarkar has more than 20 years of experience working on cutting edge technologies at startup and Fortune 500 companies such as Intel Corporation, Yahoo Incorporation, and Bank of America. She has led teams developing new products as well as implementing large scale enterprise digital transformation in telecom, high tech, and banking industries. Currently, she is the director of conversational AI technology at Ally. Prior to this, she was the director of engineering projects at Stratified, a Charlotte, North Carolina based startup developing AI driven data analytics project. Anita has master's degree in computer science from IIT Delhi and an MBA from the Duke Fuqua School of Business. Anita is passionate about the power of human connections and is actively involved in the innovation ecosystem. She is an angel investor and mentors entrepreneurs through local accelerators. She has been a mentor with Cherry Blair Foundation that is empowering women entrepreneurs across the globe. She volunteers as a great reviewer for NC Idea, a foundation that helps entrepreneurs at all stages of business development. Now I hand over session to Ms. Anita Sarkar. We shall take the questions from the participants at the end of the session. My friends Charanya and Rahul will assist in coordinating the questions. Ma'am, please.
Thank you very much, Vinita. It's my pleasure to be with you all here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So, today's session, I will share with you a practitioner's view and what we live day to day in this space of AI and NLP, and creating conversational AI solutions in this space. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here, and we will go from there. So let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so after the wonderful introduction there on the topic, Dr. Fatima, I will go and share my experiences in this space and some things that we run into in the enterprise landscape here.
thank you,
You
ma'am.
may slideshow. You may slideshow. Okay.
Is it not showing as a slideshow?
I
No,
am
no,
not
ma'am.
able to. No, you just have to present it.
Okay.
Slideshow.
Okay, I think I shared the window. That's why maybe. So let me just share the whole screen. I think that may be
Okay.
the issue. Okay, let's try the whole screen. So do you see the slideshow now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Virtual
So Dr.
assistant.
Fatima alluded to this in the introduction. So we are all very, very familiar with the conversational AI and the virtual assistants in our life these days. So you can say the big bang and when it became very mainstream was somewhere early in the 2011 when Siri was launched on iPhone. And this is very phenomenal. What can I help you with? So this is the core of what we are trying to do here with the virtual assistants, right? So at the center of this is helping the user, and we will come back to that. I just wanted to call attention to this as we started. And from here, I was looking at Apple's page for India and just look at the kind of integrations they have built. Just at the click of that button, just from Siri, you can make a call, you can find places, and look at all the languages. I see here, I come from West Bengal originally, and here it is so interesting to see that you have something written in Bengali. Our kacha kachi bakery dakhao, show me a bakery close to me. And then here we have something in Telugu, missed calls chupinchu, right? So it is phenomenal how where this technology has come, the number of languages that are supported, and the number of different use cases that are supported, whether it's making a call, finding places, things like this. The other one is Amazon Alexa. So this came like 2 years after Siri, and right now it is so prevalent in all homes. This is my own Alexa app on my phone, and this is again very interesting when I see some things here. Let's see. So I have my shopping list here. So my whole way of keeping a list on the refrigerator and writing the shopping list all over the week, that's totally changed. Now it's always Alexa maintaining my shopping list. And here you will see something else interesting. Alexa, open morning bhajans. So again, we see how we are going beyond languages, beyond geographies, and beyond use cases, everything coming together in these virtual assistants of today. So next is, I work in the financial services space. I've worked at Bank of America. Right now I work with Ally. And this is the Erica, Bank of America's virtual assistant. So it was started in 2018. And if you see, there are, I would say, at least two big categories we see here. Here we see how I can transfer money between my accounts. It is very easy. I use my mobile app a lot, and we have this online money transfers. And now Erica does that even easier. I can just tell Erica to transfer money, and she will ask, between your accounts to someone else, or do you want to pay a bill? So all the ways that I could be transferring money. All I said was, I want to transfer money. And here there's something called insights. This is not even me telling Erica something, but Erica saying, hey Anita, I have some insights for you. And of course I love it. She's wishing me also good evening if it is nighttime. I took a screenshot during night, so it's good, wishing me good evening. So how contextual is that? And it will tell me, you can monitor your spend path. Are you spending more this month, or are you on track with your spending plans? So it's a nice way to keep some guardrails around me, right? So I don't get so wild doing all my online shopping. So transactions and personalized insights. So as we look at banks and, all the banks we want, or any company, we want to give the best customer experience. And what is the best customer experience? As personalized as it can be. It is great if you give me a generic information, but it is even better if you can give me, very specific to my use cases, very specific to my spending or my life needs. So that personalized insights is something that's a big target for banks and any other enterprises to add value to their customer base. This is very interesting. In the last 2 years of the pandemic, just see how much the usage has increased. And Erica is one of the leading virtual assistants in financial services. There's another one for Cap One, and of course, there's another one that I'm working on at Ally. But just I grabbed these numbers from the site about Erica interactions. You see, from 2019 to 2020, it doubled, and then another 50% increase in the next 1 year. So that is something very significant. It shows that the people adoption is increasing. So the thing with new technology, we are all technologists here. We are passionate about, what we can do with technology. But again, we are also the humans and the consumers, right? And it's not that we're going to jump to use a new technology. We'll do that only when we feel comfortable, only when we see it's adding a value that we are looking for. And this growth shows that there is an adoption. Industry adoption also goes by jumps and starts. There'll be some who are early adopters, and then some who will wait and watch. Some, like me, although I work in technology, I still like to wait and watch. And then jump into, using and embracing these technologies. Now, looking at this 19 million users, we can say very well that this all has come mainstream. People have started adoption. So I'll keep going a few more slides. And Dr. Goswami, are we taking questions at the end? I guess we'll take questions at the end.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we will jump into some of the foundational elements. What makes a conversational AI, a virtual assistant like this, possible? So this is what Dr. Fatima, you were mentioning earlier, right? So NLP is this very interesting stream where it is sitting at the intersection of many different things. The human language, right? All the constructs of human language that has evolved over all this life of man on earth, right? All those constructs. Then computer science and the field of AI. So at the intersection of all of this is this natural language processing. Again, when we talk about natural language processing, there are two main constructs within it, if you may. There may be some more, but broad categories. The natural language understanding. What this does is takes all the text and interprets the meaning. If I'm saying a book, what does the book mean, and how do you parse my sentence and come up with those words, come up with the vocabulary. So all of that is the NLU. And then natural language generation. This is how do you generate the text? How do you put one word after another? This is a very, very complex field. I was doing some courses at a college here, and getting the right text output, well, I could not do it. So I'm not trying again. But I just am amazed where we are coming and how much work has been done to even try to generate like the spoken language or the written language. Then there's this other, this is the optional part, but often you'll see this goes hand in hand. So when you see Siri or Alexa, everywhere you have that microphone, right? So this is the additional point where you have this automatic speech recognition that takes the DTM of signals, whatever I'm talking, and converts that into text. And once it is into text, then the rest of the NLP engines come into play. So these are some of the foundational elements here. And now we will take this at the next level, So with those foundational components, how do we get to conversational AI? So some terminology, let us get some terminology out of the way first. Utterance, anything that the user says. So if you look at this sequence here on the left, if when a customer comes and says, I want to know my savings account balance, that entire sentence is an utterance. Now the bot, I'm showing the virtual assistant as the bot there, takes that utterance and it parses that utterance and finds what are the different words, and through that finds out what is the intent. What is this person trying to do? The intent that comes out is the show balance. So an intent is the user's intention. What do you want? And then the entity is what gives all the additional information, right? Savings account, balance, these are the information. And then once you have all this intents and entities, then the bot decides, okay, so what am I supposed to do? What is the response? And you see your balance is whatever dollars. This is plain old, integrations. So we have our databases where we have the customer's account information, we have the balance. So once the AI interface has figured out that this is what we need from, so this account and this balance is what we need, then we go in and get the balance and display that to the customer. Now this last portion, it may look like it is a lot of NLG. Often it is not. Often it is, we have those fixed text, and there is a very small part of NLG because NLG is a really difficult problem. So again, another view of this, if you see what goes in. So we use one term, right? Conversational AI or virtual assistant. And within it, there is really a lot of different steps going on. So first, everything starts with tokenizers. Basically, for the machine to understand that when I said I want to know my savings account balance, those are 6, 7 different words. So how do there are a number of different tokenizers you can use. You can use a plain old white space tokenizer. There's a spacey. Then featureizers, converting these into the features. Then there's an entity extractor. You can have something very simple like a regex entity extractor. You can have something more complex. These are where the individual use cases come into play. How complex is your use case? How complex do you want to make it? How efficient do you want to make it? Things like that. And then classifier is where you're trying to understand, okay, this entity, this intent, what do we want to do? What information do we get and display to the customer? Then there's the sentiment analyzer. We haven't talked about this a lot yet, but this is very powerful. So another part of NLP, there are words you can pick up and say whether this person is happy or angry, and how to deal with that. So this is something when a customer comes in, we are doing a lot of this for customer experience, for the customer service, right? Now, if someone is already upset, somebody is thinking that their bank card has been stolen, we don't want to give any wrong information at any time, but also if we know the customer is distressed, we want them to get to a human associate as soon as possible. And we want to know that, give the heads up to the associate that this person is not happy, they are upset, or they are worried. So, just give that additional personalized care. So it's all about that personalization again. So what is the workflow? when customers come in, they have these conversations with us. It could be over text as a chat, or it could be over voice. And we take those conversations, the conversational AI, you'll see this is a double arrow, right? So it's having the conversation with the customer. And then behind the scenes, this is a process that's an endless process, continuing loop, where after the fact, we look at those conversations. Did the bot get it right? And that is the annotate and analyze those conversations. This is where we have the human in the middle to go and make sure the bot is doing right. If something needs to be changed, we mark that, we annotate that, and we retrain the models. So once you retrain the model with each, the more the model is used, the more the bots are used, it learns and gets better and better. So this continuing workflow is a very, very important part to success. And as enterprises, a lot of our effort goes in there. It is one thing to stand the bot up one time, but then over time, how do you make sure the bot is performing, that the bot is learning and doing it, getting it right? I'm not touching on that so much today, but if you look, there are use cases of, examples of runaway bots. Microsoft Tay was an example in that scenario of what could go wrong when we have this auto learning assistance. So what does it take to build a Convo AI solution? Now, this is where most of my work focuses in the enterprise, because we can't do anything as one individual. And this is the biggest learning from me, from going from classroom to industry. In a classroom, we work in small teams. I know all the colleges and all, we encourage teamwork, but it is still very small teams. A lot of it is on individual, how I'm studying for the exams, how I'm coding the software. It's all a lot on me. But the moment you go to the enterprises, it becomes a huge team effort. So I'll just touch on, so we talked about a few things of what it takes technically, what is the technology behind it for bots to work, and so who are the people who make it work. So the first team I would talk about is, the product and the customer experience team. So these are the people who, the center of everything is that, how may I help you? Why do we even have this bot? To give that personalized experience and help to the customers. So they find out what are the different things the customers are calling about, or chatting to us about, and get ahead of that. The next step is proactive insights. Not even when they are calling, but you saw Erica's telling me proactively, Anita, this is your spend path, or this is how much you have spent. So even proactively, how can we help the people? So identifying those use cases, this is the team that does that, looks at the customer experiences, looks at the entire product suite we have, and find out where we can have the bot add value. Then we add a brand persona. You saw, Erica is Bank of America's assistant is called Erica. So adding that brand persona that differentiates the experience. Being very sensitive to the customer sentiment. I was talking about that, right? If somebody is distressed, we are not going to tell them things that they're not immediately worried about. Let's get them, handhold them to a human associate, so they can get that touch that they need. And then it's a constant work to see everything that we're building. Are people even using it? And that is where we go and see that Erica report about the adoption, which is a very positive trend. And human behavior, it does not come at one particular company level. It comes at usually, that the industry level, and as humans, across the board, if I'm if I'm comfortable with these kind of solutions, I'll be more open to embracing it or using it in specific areas of my life. Then, of course, there's the data and data science teams. So we are working with lots and lots of data here, right? Everything that the customer says, all the utterances, you have to gather those utterances. And this is, again, Dr. Fatima, you're talking exactly something on these lines about the context, right? So how can I order checks? versus was my check deposited. The key word here is check in both, right? My machine can go and find out, okay, it's the check they're talking about, but what's the context? In one, I just want information, generic information about ordering checks. In one, I'm asking about a specific check that has been deposited. So it's a very different experience that I'm looking for, different information that I'm looking for. And context becomes so important for the machine to understand. This is where the training and the level of intense we create and train is key to success. And then there is, of course, what models we are using, how we are training the models, and monitoring this performance, as we increase the solutions. So initially we would always start with some simple intents, and then we keep adding to it, and it's again a continuous journey to see, as we add more to the model, more to the bot, is the performance improving, or is it deteriorating? There could be conflicts and overlap between the different things that we are programming. So it could be it could be going downhill, and so continuous model monitoring is very, very critical here. Then, of course, there's the engineering teams. These are very processor and computing intensive applications, right? So you need those right platforms where you can run the models. You need the integrations with the different parts of the bank or enterprise, where you have those data, like we saw, what's my balance? So how do you integrate to get those balance? So that is very similar how you would do it on an online web page or on a mobile app, basically integrating with other systems within the enterprise. And then there is risk and compliance. So we are living in an era where like data is king, and the data is the competitive advantage for companies. But again, as a customer, I want my data to be secure, right? I do not want my data to be available to competitors. I don't want others selling to me, or even stealing, even identity theft. So we have this whole risk and compliance function to make sure we are doing this right by our customers. So basically, it's a team sport.
Ma'am, is there any problem?
No, sorry, I lost my voice there for a
Okay,
second.
ma'am. Sorry.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. So we're going to look at the entire. I hope I can keep the voice there. And so the entire NLP timeline and the
No
ecosystem of.
problem. Actually, this screen presentation, is it visible, Karthik? I'm not able to see the presentation. Is it visible?
At the moment, it's not visible, ma'am.
Yeah, I think Anita, you have to present again.
Okay, let me share again.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible, ma'am. It's clear.
Is visible? Okay, good. Good. It was visible earlier, right? Earlier when I was talking?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. Uh, so the NLP timeline and ecosystem effect, we'll see something here. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't see the controls of the mute button here easily on the screen. So I had to stop this. Nine, the first uses of NLP were much earlier and started way back. This is all around the AI and machine learning and all. But most recently, the machine translation was one of the first areas where NLP usage started. But you'll see a lot of development has happened just in the last decade. So something that came about is, the transformer models. So what this is, for NLP models to work well, training is very important. So, and that requires a lot of data, a lot of processing power. What was a limiting factor in adoption or, in advancement was the availability of that processing power to people. With transformer models, the model that came up was you can train the model once and then use it for different applications. This was phenomenal because now the barrier to entry was reduced, right? Not everybody needs as much processing power now to train models. You can take a pre-trained model and then use it for different applications. So this was a phenomenal breakthrough in the field of NLP. And now there are continuous enhancements, and there's this whole culture of open source and people sharing models. The competitive advantage is shifting not from how you create the model, but how you use the data and how you use the models for your particular scenarios. One thing that came very recently is dialogue training. So far the training used to be on sentences itself, but what has been found, so if you see here in the 2000s, a lot of data became available with the use of web, with recording conversations and all. So initially the training was still in sentences. Now the latest breakthrough is dialogue training. So it adds more and more to the contextual impact when you're doing dialogue based training, exactly in what sequence the dialogues happen. Also, we were talking about how much the processing is processing intensive, and all of this progresses at an ecosystem level. So it's not just one thing that happens. So yes, models were developed, but also yes, NVIDIA came up with the GPU. We have seen performances at places of work. A model earlier would leave it for training overnight, and you start using GPUs, you get it done in a few hours. And then of course all the big tech jumped in. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they all came up with their platforms. So we saw starting about Alexa, right? So once Amazon does this beautifully, right? They make their own platform for themselves, and then they make it a solution for others, like they did with AWS. Same thing they did with Lex. After they made Alexa, they made Lex available for people. And now they have this entire suite for SageMaker. Same with Microsoft and Google also. So we'll see some more. Earlier we saw how we have all those different teams that are involved, all the different work that goes into making a conversational AI solution possible. And we will see how these big tech are making platforms to make that easy. The whole mantra, of this industry has become, democratize AI. So it is not only for someone with a lot of processing power and technology to use AI, but make it more easily accessible. And the shift has been more and more from going from model centric to data centric. So in the enterprise now, I don't have to worry as much about the individual model because I have that code from many places. I worry about more about the data. What is the data I'm going to process? I'm worrying more about my customer, about what experience do we give to the customer. So this is the Amazon AWS SageMaker. You'll see they have built this holistic platform, holistic tools kit about how do you prepare, get all the data. And this is direct from the site. So anybody is curious, please feel free to go and reference this there. They are the SageMaker ground truth, take all the data with labeling and then train them, build the models, train and tune and manage. And they're seeing so much increase in the adoption. Of course, this is all from the site, but it is a very strong suite. There's integrations with all the major toolkits. So this is SageMaker. Same with Azure Machine Learning. They also have, and this is, excuse that it's a little bit hazy here, but they are doing this end-to-end MLOps, which is where a lot of the enterprises focus goes, making sure the capabilities are robust and, safe and secure, all of that. So you'll see they have built this entire platform to take you end to end, whatever you need to get these models out there. Now we'll look at something in the industry. At least I love looking at, this report, the Gartner hype cycle. So if you look at this Gartner hype cycle for AI, there's some interesting, and then this is a screenshot I myself had taken about 2 years back. And it is interesting to compare and contrast. So whenever you have emerging technologies, again, it's very exciting. As technologists, we always love that. But we always have to balance it with realism, right? So new technologies, they follow this hockey stick kind of curve. Anything that's new, there's a lot of hype. It goes to the peak of the hype. So like 2019, Gartner said, yes, chatbots and conversational AI user interfaces, they are at the peak of the hype. And if you see, pay a little attention to the color of those buttons, there's a blue button, blue color there. And if you look, that is a 2 to 5 years. So what they predicted that this will go to total maturity in like 2 years. And at the same time, at 2019, if you see what was mature, was GPUs were already mature. Speech recognition was pretty mature. So here, this is the plateau of the curve. If you see here, this is the plateau. And these are stable technologies. So 2019, this is where chatbots were. Fast forward only 2 years. Whereas chatbots, they are at the bottom of this cycle. So basically, we have all run in and embraced this chatbots, user interfaces, and we have built those, and we have found all the things that could go wrong. So there is some amount of disillusionment and some amount of frustration and, scratching our heads to figure out what next. And now if you see, that is a white button. So it's saying that in less than 2 years, we would have come to peace with, what can and cannot be done, and we will be at a plateau. So that is where a steady technology goes into that plateau level. So this is the core chatbot. Now there are a few more interesting things here that I love to see. So artificial general intelligence. If you say this is a yellow triangle, which means greater than 10 years. What is artificial general intelligence? Like another a machine talking to us and behaving with us just as another human. We are quite far away from that. Even now, if we do something with the machines like small talk, it is very easy for the machine to get it wrong. Machines still may not understand humor. So these are interesting things. As technologists, in our lifetime, we'll see where this goes. And more things to call out. See here, the AI cloud services. Again, 2 years back, it was here. Now it has already reached, it's past its peak. So two things, it's moving very, very fast. Solutions are moving very fast. AI cloud services is what we just saw. The AWS SageMaker and Azure ML and Google Dialogflow, all of that. So it has moved drastically, right? Same thing about data labeling and annotation services. It was here, it is already here. This data labeling and annotation is, again, at the heart of all things AI and all things NLP. Another thing that's coming up, which was not as much over here, at least I could not find it, and now it is here, is the model ops, which is the steady state. How do we do all the operations on the model, all the management of the model? And this is, again, for enterprises and all to adopt something and continue with something, it has to be manageable, right? If we cannot scale, if we cannot manage, we cannot provide those services. So model ops is emerging. Now I see a lot of startups around that, about how do you manage the data? How do you monitor the model performance? A lot of startups coming in that space. Wanted to share that with you. And you saw that the chatbot is at the bottom of the row right now, but it's not a reason for concern. It's a very well-known phenomena how the emerging technologies go. And here you'll see that for tech investments in financial services, there is still continuing robust demand. Basically, customers want their digital channels. They want the self-service. And where are the companies investing? And again, I'm focusing on financial services. You can look at this for any sector that you're interested in. So what this says is, of all the people, all the banks and all that were interviewed, 49% of them, they're increasing their investment in AI machine learning. They are increasing their investments in the customer and user experience. Of course, top of all of this is cyber and information security. That is very evident, right? I mean, when we are dealing with so much of people's data, we have to make sure it's all safe and secure. Cool. So that was all I had. And I do have one more slide. So we talked about, we are in this man-machine era, right? So we talked about the journey of the machine. And so I thought I'll share a little bit about the journey of this human. And I call this my jungle gym because you might have heard, many of you would have heard, nowadays careers are no longer like the typical corporate ladders. It is more of a jungle gym. So just wanted to share this a little bit. You all are very smart young students, and as you go through your education and your career ahead, it's a very fast emerging world out there, right? Lots of changes coming. So I just wanted to share a little bit about my personal experience. So I started almost 20 years back, more than 20 years back. I started in a company called CDOT right after my graduation. I joined this company in New Delhi. And at that time, we were working on telecom switches. This little thing here is a Motorola chip. One of my first experiences was going to work and breaking one of the legs of the chips. And I thought I would be fired the next day, but turns out you break those legs quite often for the chips. But anyway, we were working with 800 numbers. 800 numbers was a new thing then. Now we do not think twice before we dial some 800 numbers. Then the big shift is I got married. I moved to US. I started working for a startup, which was then acquired by Intel. I was working in the VoIP gateways, and that was the time of the 3G. Now look, we are already at 5G. So just in this last 20 years, there's been so much change that we have seen. And another interesting, when we were working this, I didn't put this here, I should have. At Intel, they had a tagline. So Intel was all processors, right? But they had a tagline saying, anything that computes will communicate. Anything that communicates will compute. Now think about that. What they were talking about, chips for our iPhones and all. Of course, I did not realize that at all. I was just going around wondering what are they saying. But then, of course, the iPhones came out. Now we know. While working at, so there's a reason I put this in this way. So here, I was doing like totally hands-on software development. While at Intel, slowly I started moving into project management. And I would love to do my software development, but I was very curious about what's the bigger picture. How do things happen in its entirety? So that's where I started moving into project management. And I loved, managing a project end to end. While there itself, I was working also with Yahoo. I started working a lot on the IVR technologies, contact center technologies. And this is a typical menu. We would change the menu so many times, and it became a joke that always we would say, please listen carefully as our menu options have changed. So that was a constant. That was the only constant thing in the menu. Here was another change. I moved from Los Angeles to Charlotte, again, family reasons, and it was a big shift from going from big tech to financial services. And here I started then exploring, and I did project management initially, and then I said, how do they make these products? So I moved into product management, and I enjoyed that because now it brings different dimensions. Everything we talked about, the user experience, the technology, the product, all of those different dimensions together. So had a great time doing that. When Charlotte started having a really evolving startup scene, so I went to work for a startup called Stratified. I was now back in the tech software development space. And so I was working with Stratified. We have a very cool NLP product suite. And from there, I joined Ally to lead the conversational AI technology here. So the theme that has happened in my life, it's been a lot of chance and choice. I really did not control where I moved geographically, but each time I did choose a little bit, small steps at a time. I'm conservative that way. So balancing work and life, I made my little choices to pick where I worked. And the big things that have stayed with me and helped me is continuous learning and collaboration. As a technologist and, starting my career in computer science and all, I was a classic introvert. But now I really love meeting people. I love interacting with people. Anytime I'm meeting people, I know I am learning something. And it's a great experience there. So that is all I had. I hope I didn't speak too fast.
Hello, Anita. It was wonderful. It was eye-opener regarding the technology and thanks for sharing your roadmap also. I am very much confident that this really helps the students know that even if they are introvert now, but you have shown the roadmap that how the chances and choices make your way as long as you are positive and you believe in yourself. Wonderful presentation. And the way you have the last but one or two slides where you have shown where the AI is, how it is stabilizing, what are the technologies in the peak, and those things really help. So I think the students also will go through that, the plot, and see and also be observant how to make the roadmap depending on that. But it's not that's not so easy that the graph says so I also move. I know it takes a hell lot of hard work, determination, perseverance to follow that particular thing. You have done a great job. Congratulations and best wishes for your future. And ma'am, you would like to say something, and then we'll take the questions. Madam, please unmute yourself, ma'am. Unmute, madam. Yeah.
Yes, I did unmute myself. It was very amazing, that in such a short duration, she could cover so much material and in such a simple way. I think it was really beautiful. I'm sure the students, all of you must have enjoyed this, right? Maybe you have a lot of questions too. Do you have some questions? I'm sure you must be having questions. Yeah?
We have question from the audience.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful speech, ma'am. It was very informative session. We have few questions from the audience. Can I proceed, ma'am?
Sure.
Can I?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to the first question of this session. What are the challenges of the NLU?
Yes, so the biggest challenge comes in getting the right amount of data. So when I am looking in an enterprise context, again, so the difference in going from academia to industry becomes how do you bring all the different players together. So a lot of my work focuses or my energies focus on the team building, setting up the organizational structure. And if you look at the technology part of view, there are two things that become most important. One is getting the data that you need, and getting the processing and the processor set up and all machines set up to process all of that. So those are two things from a technology point. Now the third thing that becomes is everything that we train, is it working as we need it? So constant monitoring and tuning becomes very important. So I would say the team, the technology, and then the operational processes.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question is, could you please give a brief explanation about the differences between NLP, NLU, and NLG?
So I am sure your professors will give you a much more technical difference there. But if you look at it from my point of view, NLP, natural language processing, that is the bigger umbrella, and NLU, NLG are both part of that. So NLU is understanding what I'm speaking, right? Every sentence that I say, parsing that into different words, then from there understanding what the word means, so exactly the semantics and syntax that Dr. Fatima was talking about before. And NLG is generating that. I feel that is the toughest problem there. To how can the computer say an exact sentence on its own that sounds totally natural? So putting one word after the next and making sure it holds good in terms of the meaning and the syntax.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, the question is, what are the difficulties in NLU?
So, so one thing I did not cover last time is, when we say NLU, again, it's very subjective to different languages. As you look at different languages across the world, I don't know if I covered that some in the slide, but we have so much of globalization and localization happening. Getting a lot of data, that is the big thing, first of all, starting off, and then making sure, each language may have its own nuances. Different, like Chinese has a very different syntax than say English. And how do you train models for each of these languages and get the correct syntax and semantics out of that?
Thank you, ma'am. Next, which NLP model will be the best accuracy of?
Sorry, with it will depend on your use cases. The more complex models, generally in the enterprises, we try to go a little bit step by step. It's we see what works better to start with, and then as you add more use cases, we do something also called like challenger bots. Try with different models and see what works better. In very, very generic terms, like for NLG and all, BERT has been giving very good results. And right now, and it's a completely evolving space, right? So I'm very curious to see what Google's that dialogue learning is going to give. So very curious to see that. So I would summarize and say it's a very evolving space, and it also depends on your specific usage. There are some powerful models out there, and we'll see more and more.
Thank you, ma'am. Which language do you prefer for NLP?
See, I will be honest, I don't write as much code anymore, but mostly in the industry, I'm seeing Python is very commonly used. There is such rich libraries out there, all the Jupyter notebooks and all. So Python is the most common that I'm seeing these days.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's go for the last question of the day. What is Natural Language Toolkit? Could you
It's a
explain
very
something?
good question. So toolkits, there is of course the Python NLTK library, the NLTK library that has a lot of the functions that you typically need. So if you're talking about that, that's the toolkit. When I think of toolkit, I think in a much broader picture about, and I think of the MLOps, I think of what SageMaker and Microsoft Azure, all they are providing in terms of how can I easily build a model, how can I easily monitor a model, how can I easily deploy a model. So at an enterprise level, the broader scope, that is what I look as a toolkit. So you could be referencing, I'm not sure what the context is, but someone could be talking about the Python NLTK library, which is a very rich library that we use. But broad picture, we also have this overall, in the enterprise level, how do you manage the models? And Dr. Fatima, Dr. Goswami, please feel free to add. I know I'm talking in more of a practitioner view, but if you would like to share anything specific with the students, please do around any of the questions.
Thank you, ma'am, for answering all these questions very patiently. Now I invite my friend Manish for proposing vote of thanks. Over to you, Manish.
Ma'am, Manish having a big trouble with power cut, ma'am. So he cannot join at moment.
Okay, Vinita, you please
Yes,
take
ma'am.
over the vote of thanks.
Yes.
Vinita is there?
Yes.
Vinita? Or any students are there? Uh, Vinita is also once again. Okay, then I will just go through this. Okay, so good evening, one and all. Education is not the filling of a pail, but lighting of a fire. It's a moment of great privilege and honor for me to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of Department of AI, Anurag University, for the third and final session of the Year 2021 webinar series. On behalf of Department of AI, Anurag University, I would like to thank our eminent speaker, Ms. Anita Sarkar, for enlightening us with her profound knowledge and experience. It gave us deep insights into the topic of natural language understanding, the conversational AI, and also revealed some interesting facts. I am pretty sure the precious knowledge that Ms. Anita Sarkar gave us will definitely help us in the students' studies and future. We are thankful to Dr. U.B. Desai, Chancellor, Anurag University, Dr. P. Rajeshwar Reddy, Chairman of Anurag Group MLC and Chairman, Telangana Raitu Bandhu Samiti, Mrs. S. Nilima, CEO, Anurag University, Professor S. Ramchandram, Vice Chancellor, Anurag University, Professor Sayyida Sameen Fatima, Registrar and HOD of Department of AI, Anurag University, Dr. G. Vishnumurthy, Dean School of Engineering, for their support from the back end, without which we were not able to do this. And also thanks to faculty members for and the convener for organizing Air 2021 webinar series. Many thanks to student volunteers from the video conferencing committee, Karthik, Tejasvi, Shashank, program committee, Anushri, Sharanya, Harika, Deepti, Sai, Suma, creative committee, Rahul Reddy, Sujita, Sujit, Nakshatra, and overall coordinators Manish and Vinita for the successful program execution. And a big thanks to all the participants present here for paying your attention and engaging in learning. Thank you. Anushri, are you there?
Thank you, ma'am. We would like to present ma'am a small token of love and gratitude.
Vinita Raga,
Present.
not me, Ray. It's Vinita.
It
This
is
is
really
conversational AI.
yeah.
This was conversational AI.
That is conversational. Yes.
The reason is there's a lot of heavy rain in Hyderabad, ma'am. So the lot of people having trouble with the network issues. That's all.
Yes, and it is really commendable. Virtual is not easy. Anytime we have the virtual conferences, there is a unique situation that props up. But the fact that you all are doing this still is huge. Thank you.
Kindly accept it,
Appreciate
ma'am.
this.
Thank you once again.
It was a pleasure. It's my privilege to be here. Thank you all, and best wishes to all of you on your journey ahead. You're in very good
Thank
hands
you
with
a
your
lot.
professors. So, all the best.
Thank you a lot.
Enjoy the journey.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
Thanks, Dr. Goswami. Thanks,
Okay.
Dr. Fatima.
Okay. Bye.
Until next time,
Yeah.
See you. Bye-bye.
have a good weekend.
Thank you,
Bye.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Don't say thank you to Mr. Anita. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.